And that's why it is important, Honorable Speaker, we cannot afford to remove the referendum committee from the proposed bill, because at any given time, there must be people who will coalesce or organize either for or against. Therefore, it is important that those referendum committees are retained. Honorable Speaker, with those very many remarks, I stand to support the referendum bill number 2 of 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Raswali, member for Saku.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to contribute to this very important bill. Honorable Speaker, the matter before us is very weighty. It's about the law of this country, not just for us sitting here, but for posterity. This law must not be rushed. We must look at it with a pencil, sharpened pencil, so that nothing is going to skip this gallery. Mr. Speaker, we must learn from other jurisdictions. The most immediate referendum is the Brexit. That today, the British want to walk out of the European Union, but they are in a serious quagmire. Many want to remain, many wanted to leave. But some of the critical and important issues that they are attempting to discuss today is to have their cake and eat it. They want some issues that they want to leave the EU, but on other issues, they want to remain there. So for that reason, as we look at our referendum bill, we must have, there's not going to be those who are going to be for the yes and those who are going to say for the no. Mr. Speaker, several speakers before me have alluded to the fact that let us not posit this referendum bill for the BBI. Let us posit for posterity, for the future in lawmaking in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, referendum as it is, this is in our constitution making. Many have been saying it is not about yet to amend the Constitution. It is about implementing the Constitution. In coming up with this particular bill, I think Honorable Tiende Amolo, who moved this bill, must agree with me that it is in the consequence of making the law of this land complete. Mr. Speaker, through a referendum, the citizenry of this country will have a say and will have a voice in making the laws. I just want to talk about 3 issues. First is Article 3. That says about application of the Election Act, that when we are running a referendum, it is as if we are running a general election. If you see what has been spelled out there, eligibility of vote, registration of voters, all that up to P, it clearly says that, and it must inform this House that the devil is in the detail. A lot of time and a lot of resources are required to put things in place. So, in terms of timeline, what the committee recommended in the consolidated report, it is trying to microscope some of the timings here, where from 6 months they tried to reduce it to like 30 days. From 30 days to 14 days. From 14 days to 7 days. This cuts across the bill. And I think as we go forward, we must look at it because these are weighty matters. That is before us. Is it feasible to reduce the timeline from 60 days or 6 months to just a few weeks? Mr. Speaker, the other issue is on 17. That is about the petition, challenging the outcome of the referendum. The Speaker just before me said that this is a constitutional matter. Necessarily, it cannot just end at the Court of Appeal. There are many lawyers in this House, distinguished for that matter. If a matter is constitutional, then I believe the constitutional making, it is for the Supreme Court. I believe it's not for the High Court or the Court of Appeal. As also we look at that, we must also consider the petition, where it is said that the petitioners must file within, within 14 days, within 7 days. I think that is too short a time for the petitioners to have prepared themselves to go before even the Supreme Court. Finally, it is on Article 54. That is, when you do a referendum in this country, and then you say that this matter is not as important as that one of the Constitution, and then we say that you are just going to have a simple majority. I believe anything that will affect the law of this land must be determined by 50+1, or else it will be difficult to enforce. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Well, the next member on my list is the Honorable Atandi, member for Alego Usonga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak on this bill, the Referendum Bill 2020. Honorable Speaker, I want to start by thanking the committee for coming up with a very simple bill which will end up as a referendum law. Honorable Speaker, referendums happen in many countries. Countries in the West, such as France and Australia, have done many referendums. And so, as a country, Kenya, we have not done as many referendums as possible as compared to those other countries. And therefore, I think it was important that for us, we make a simple law that would allow anybody in this country who is interested in asking Kenyans their opinions on a matter to be able to come up and have it. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the bill which is before us has captured many issues which are touching on the concerns of Kenyans. And one of the issues that this bill is capturing, which I think we need to look at, is the fact that even after the referendum, anybody who is disgruntled with the outcome or the processes of the referendum is given an opportunity to petition the same in our courts. And it has made it very simple. The petition process has been made very simple. Because one, the Chief Justice is being asked to appoint a 3-judge bench. This is very important, Honorable Speaker, because it will give the petitioners an assurance that their petition is being listened to by not just one judge, like what we have seen in the past where one judge makes a decision on certain critical matters that touch on the Constitution. Therefore, a 3-judge bench, in my view, Honorable Speaker, is important because it is going to give the petitioner an assurance and be able to listen to this matter conclusively. On the question that the petition, the provision again on the petition is that the petition must be concluded within the 30 days. I think, Honorable Speaker, this is very important. Even though the immediate speaker, the immediate contributors is saying that this is not quite in order. This is in order because, Honorable Speaker, when a referendum has been conducted, the decision needs to be taken as fast as possible so that we don't need to drag a simple referendum process in courts for more than 30 or more than 2 months, as may be suggested. Therefore, the referendum period, which is been provided here, which is 30 days, in my view, is accommodative. And thirdly, Honorable Speaker, the cost of filing a referendum has been made modest. That if you want to file a petition, you only need to pay 1 million Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, I think this is fair. And I think it will give as many Kenyans who are disgruntled with the outcome of the referendum or the process to be able to seek for redress in our courts. Honorable Speaker, this bill is protecting the citizens of this country from what I call presidential fiat. In many countries, Honorable Speaker, especially in Africa, we have seen situations where presidents do not want to retire. When their time for retirement has come, then they institute constitutional processes that aims at extending their tenure in office. And therefore, the fact that this bill is protecting Kenyans by saying that a president cannot initiate a referendum, I think this is very important for all of us, and I think it's going to ensure that the Kenyans are protected from the presidential fiat. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I know that we are discussing this bill at a time when we are facing a referendum. We are trying to amend a constitution through the popular initiative. And therefore, this sometimes is going to crowd our views in a manner that we are likely to look at this referendum bill and tie it with the referendum which is coming up. I want to plead with my colleagues that because we want to do referenda in future, tomorrow you would want to wake up and do your own referendum, ask Kenyans to vote on a particular matter. Let us make this law, let us agree with this law as drafted by the committee, because you look at this law, it is very simple. You know, it will allow a referendum process to be conducted as fast as possible and Kenyans move on with their activities. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Honorable Jeremiah Kioni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for according me an opportunity to speak to this issue. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, that as members of CIOC, we had also done a referendum bill. And I think it is important to mention that the mandate of the CIOC is as provided for under Section 4 of the 6th Schedule of the Constitution. And, Mr. Speaker, the major task that the committee has is to look out on any impediments that stand in the way of the implementation of the Constitution. And in executing our mandate, Mr. Speaker, we as a committee have done a little bit of audit of the Constitution and the laws that have been passed since 2010. And Mr. Speaker, we have no less than 150 of the statutes that require to be looked at, perhaps amended, improved, so that we can be able to implement the Constitution as we passed it back in 2010. Mr. Speaker, in the process of amending or auditing the implementation of the Constitution, we went through Article 255 of the Constitution. And we noted that it's provided that there is need, if you need to amend anything at Article 255, you need a referendum. And we did not have a referendum law. That was noted by the committee immediately we came into office. And I want to also put it on record that as early as 2019, Mr. Speaker, the committee engaged the Third Way Alliance, the Dr. Uko Aukot, popular, I think it was, we called the Puguza Mzigo. And it is out of that that it became clearer that there are issues that require to be addressed quickly, including how would IBC verify signatures, how would the county assembly report back to the two speakers, what does it entail for the county assembly to pass any bill, any constitutional amendment bill that is put their way, what kind of threshold and legal timelines would be required. And Mr. Speaker, in line with that, the committee quickly drafted the referendum bill, National Assembly's Bill number 11 of 2020, as a committee-sponsored bill. The process, Mr. Speaker, for the record, was initiated on 16th September 2019, via a letter that we did to the Speaker. On 8th May 2013, the bill that we had drafted was published in the Kenya Gazette. And Mr. Speaker, in getting to process the bill, it is important to mention and to acknowledge that we had engagement with the Kenya Road Reform Commission. We had an engagement with the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. We had engagement with the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. We received representation and presentations from the National Gender and Equality Commission. The Commission of Administrative Justice had a time with us, and we want to thank them for their input. The Kenya Commission of Human Rights also had time with our committee. And we also got written submissions from the Political Parties Liaison Committee, the Law Society of Kenya, the National Treasury, Center for Multi-Party Democracy, and Katiba Institute. That report, after public participation, Mr. Speaker, was tabled in this House on the 17th of September 2020. For the record and for the members of this House to know, because this committee does not belong to me, it will be there tomorrow, it was there yesterday. This committee has its mandate is derived from the Constitution, not even the standing orders. So when you subject it and say that it must report to a departmental committee, I take it that it is a complete misleading of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I do not want, I think it is also important to say, because for the record again, these are members of this committee who spent a lot of time developing the bill that is before this House. And I am there as a chair, and I thank those who gave me that responsibility. We have the Vice Chair, Peter Karuma, Mheshimiwa Peter Karuma, Naomi Chaban, Yusuf Abdi, member of Kamkuji, Christine Obaka, TJ Kajwang, Charles Jimose, Laval Wajara, Abdi Shulei, Peres Tobiko, Simeon Kingara, Anthony Uruoch, Javed Mutai, Harima Mucheke, Daniel Rono, Fabian Muli, Coronel Kingangi, Bernard Okoth, Joash Nyamoko, Moses Kirima, Catherine Wabirianga, Didmas Barasa, and Purity Grishi, all of them honorable members. So, Mr. Speaker, all I'm saying is that this, even as we support, and I support the bill before this House, and I support because with it now, we have a draft report that is developed by the two committees. It is crucial that when a committee goes out and engages the public and develops a bill, and the bill is ahead of the pack, it is only fair and reasonable to other colleagues of parliament that that bill be given its rightful place. But for another committee to start the whole process and develop another bill, and that bill to be fast-tracked by the leadership of parliament to overtake the other, I do not think that is a fair game. And I am supporting this bill, and I'm asking members to support the bill before this House. It is useful. We need to move the country forward. But it is not fair, and it is not proper leadership for those who have the responsibility to treat committees like there are some committees that are senior to others. And I think also for those of us who are in those committees, you need to take the responsibility with some little bit of respect. If others have done it, let it continue. Feed into that bill that was ahead of the pack. It doesn't make any sense to engage the public twice. We actually look like people without any order. When you call the Law Society twice to discuss the same bill with two committees, there must be something wrong somewhere. And I think even as we move on, and this is the second time, Mr. Speaker, my committee is being treated the same way. We had the IBC bill that is still pending somewhere. We did it ahead of JIRAC. The one for JIRAC was brought ahead and fast-tracked. That is not right. And I don't think that we can learn parliamentary procedures that way. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. And it is good to recognize that we have a joint report that was tabled this afternoon. And we had a good meeting in Mombasa with myself and Mheshimiwa Otiende, who represent the JIRAC. And there are many issues that we discussed and agreed upon, and they are contained in that draft report. And I support them. I own up to the recommendations that we have there. And again, it's because the country is bigger than myself and the committee. And I ask that members engage with them objectively so that we can help the country move forward. May I say this as my last comment. With the positions that we are holding, including chairing of committees, is courtesy of people who may not have managed themselves well in the previous parliament. Manage yourself well if you want to be there with us together. Do not hog. There's so much work. President Kibaki will tell us, fanya kidogo, wewe uende, kuna wengine wanakuja baadaye. Don't think that you can do everything. And don't think there isn't enough work for all committees, so that you just speak on what other committees have done. I have said that I'm not a happy person as a chair. These honorable members wasted their time in Mombasa and all over this country. And that is why I'm not a happy person. But I support this for the good of the
Honorable Kioni today seems to be coming from a very, but it is in order. It is in order. He supports. It is okay. We'll have a contribution from the Honorable Chanda, member for Bondo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to believe that if any of us were also in Kioni's shoes, you may want to say exactly what he has said. And sometimes some of us also wondered in the last parliament why COIC was there. But in terms of auditing the Constitution, the function was given to Budget and Appropriations Committee. Some of us really wondered loudly. And that happened, where Budget and Appropriations Committee were the ones who went through auditing the new Constitution 2010. So I want to believe that Jeremiah is fairly in order. Now, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to mention two things. Number one is there's a clear way in terms of what the Constitution says about amending the Constitution itself. And I think that's very clear, that you can only amend the Constitution through, number one, bringing a bill. And I think this is a fact that remains and must remain, because, Mr. Speaker, I think this is where there's a confusion. Some are thinking that you can do that through a question first, then bring in a bill. But the whole thing, logically and even legally, is that you must bring a bill, you look at the bill, you vote on the bill, And logically, again, once we have voted on the bill as an item, so it goes that the next step must also be on a yes or no, the way we do it here in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I think this is where there's a problem. Now, we have done 3 referenda before. We did a referendum in the 60s, some of us may not know. We've done a referendum in 2005. Then we did a 3rd referendum in 2010. We are facing a 4th referendum, which is in our sight, and I want to believe we are going to be doing it. We've done all this, apart from the next one, minus a law. So this law is important, this law is mandatory, and we have been really late with it. So I support the bill. While I do so, Mr. Speaker, there are 5 items which we may want to look at afresh in terms of either amending the bill or making them a little bit more straight. There are some that are not either in line or are contradicting. If you look at it like my first statement, when you look at section 6, for example, every question, it means that there are many more questions, yet we are saying that the question should be 1. So that is not flowing very well, because talking about every question, not talking about the question. If you look at section 12, the constituency being a single polling area, I think this is something that needs to be looked at again. A constituency being a single polling area, that there's a space that we can make a constituency be 1 polling area. What does that mean? Does it mean that the entire population, the entire voters of the constituency come to 1 center? Because our polling area has always been what we call a polling station. So when you talk about a polling area, a constituency being a polling area, does it mean that we'll only have, does it mean that there's a possibility that the entire 1 constituency can be a polling area? The other thing that I think needs to be checked out is particularly the role of IEBC. One side on the role of conducting civic education, and then there is, parallel to that, a campaign committee. How do the 2 run together? IEBC, what kind of a content are they bringing out for purposes of civic education? And what kind of a content, for example, is the campaign committee bringing? I think this is somewhere where we are going to be having conflict. Because, for example, IEBC may be talking about the process in terms of how you move with your vote and stuff like that. But then there's a campaigning team, a campaign committee that's campaigning for particular positions. So how do we check the 2? Or at what stage does one end and the other one begins? Or can we also have it in a manner that IEBC must have a very objective content for purpose of civic education that is beyond the normal process of movement of a voter from one place to the other, to items, to issues that are listed out for purposes of the vote. The other area is in section 25, Mr. Speaker, tallying. There's a mention that tallying is to be done at the counting, at the tallying center. I think in terms of the kind of practice that we have adopted as at now, is that counting is done at the polling station, at the polling center, not at the tallying center. So this means, if you look at the Maina Kia issue, this means that in the section 25 that we are talking about, if you go by tallying, it means that the polling station will not be a tallying area. And it means that you'll have to carry the results from a polling station to a tallying area, let's say at the constituency level. I think this is an area that
the Honorable
needs...
Chanda, I don't mean to interrupt you, but which referendum bill are you referring to?
I'm talking about section 25 of the bill. Yes.
Which one? Because the one I seem to have, the referendum number 2 bill of 2020.
This should be 6 or 25. Huh? I listed them down, but what I'm trying to talk about here in principle, Mr. Speaker, is that there is a whole issue of a tallying area and a polling station. And it's talking about tallying being done at a unit which could necessarily or could be different from the polling area. Then the last one, Mr. Speaker, is at the level of where we have a petition in court. Petition in court here is referring to particularly more petitioners or more petitioners in one petition. But I want to believe there could be more petitions, which the proposed bill is not talking about. Petitioners here are like all of the people who are petitioning listed as one. But then there is a situation where we may have many more other people, many more other interested parties petitioning the results. So I want to believe that this is something that also the proposed bill may want to look at. So those are my concerns, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order. Point of order. The Honorable Nyikal, what is out of order?
Chair, maybe some clarification going by what Honorable Chanda has just said regarding clause 25. It seems like there may be two bills that people are discussing separately, because what we have here under 25, if there is that confusion, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important to clarify it so that people are discussing the same document. Mr. Speaker, that's my concern.
The Honorable, he's on a point of order. He cannot be out of order, the Honorable member but I'll give you a chance. The Honorable Nyamai, what is burning?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It's very much close to what the Honorable Nyikal is raising, because I've looked at this document, the current report that we are looking at, that seems to bring together the thoughts of JLAC and CIOC, and I am not able to get the matter that was being raised by the Honorable Ochanda. So the question is, are we really reading from the same script?
Correct. You are right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Nyamai, the Honorable Dr. Nyikal, both of you are right. Honorable members, what is before the House for consideration, as per the order paper, is the referendum number 2 bill of 2020. Yeah, there are two. There is another one, and which raised the ire of the Honorable Kioni Jeremiah. Yes, there is that one also. But you will recall, members, that the Speaker had directed that those two bills be harmonized and be considered in the manner that we are now proceeding in considering this referendum number 2 bill of 2020. There is a harmonized report by the two committees. The two committees, number one, the CIOC, and two, this other one is JLAC. So there's a harmonized report by the two committees for the information of members. So what is under consideration, members, kindly remember, is referendum bill number 2, bill of 2020. And as you debate, you want to consider the recommendations made by the two committees jointly in their report that was tabled today, laid today also, and so, honorable members, I believe that clears the issue that was raised by Dr. Nyikal and by my sister, the Honorable Nyamai. So we proceed in that manner. The next contributions will be by the Honorable Gikaria David, member for Nakuru Town East.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to be able to contribute and support the bill before us. And of course, with the clarity now that, Honorable Speaker, you have put, then I think now we'll be able to debate. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the committee for, of course, Jeremiah Kioni in his CIOC and JLAC, whichever. We have a bill before us, and I think that is the most important thing. Honorable Speaker, today as we are talking, I was watching the television and I had Nandi counties in court trying to ask questions from the court to be given directive as to how do they, in which manner are they going to approve the already bill that has been sent to them. So, and I'm wondering, even if a judge was to make a judgment, what would they be referring to without a referendum law? And I think this is a very good law that is going to address so many other issues. Honorable Speaker, you remember yesterday or the other day, one of the counties that rejected the BBI, again, some people have gone back to court to question some of the issues that are being now clarified in this bill. And I think, Honorable Speaker, once this bill is approved, then it's going to help and sort out a lot of issues that are being asked. Honorable Speaker, it's a little bit, and of course, when we'll be given an opportunity, we will be able to make some amendments, propose some amendments to the committee so that they can be able to look at them. And some of them, some of the issues relates to even the definition on some of the terms that are being used in this bill. Honorable Speaker, I want to start by saying that if you look at the conduct of the referendum, Honorable Speaker, it is very clear in our Constitution how we go about the parliamentary initiative and, of course, the popular initiative of what we have now. Honorable Speaker, the collection of 1 million signatures, and of course I don't want to belabor on the issues that has been raised on the process of verification of signatures. But, Honorable Speaker, I think it is important for the committee to start thinking also as we look on the ways of verifying the signatures. IBC as a commission must also, through this bill, we must also indicate how long do they, what time should they verify signatures? We cannot just give a commission to verify signatures and then they decide to take, say, for example, 1 year. So again, in this bill, maybe the committee needs to look into the timeframes that will be set for verification of signatures, so that again, it's not in at the discretion of IBC to be able to do that. Honorable Speaker, on the other bit, and this is something that is, I think the aspect as it has been given by the proposal that is here in the bill of 90 days, that counties have been given 90 days to be able to process. Honorable Speaker, even here in Parliament, we are given a certain motion or in a bill. It doesn't take more than 3 hours, I think, for us to be able to debate. Honorable Speaker, giving, say, even Parliament, National Assembly, where again it has not been specified how long they should take to be able to pass this kind of a bill, again, with only 3 hours for debate of a certain bill or whatever, then again 90 days, I think, Honorable Speaker, is just too much. And Honorable Speaker, we pass some procedural motions which were given, like today, that you can only speak for 10 minutes. Honorable Speaker, I think the 90 days that has been given to counties or even to Parliament or wherever it has indicated in the bill, Honorable Speaker, I think it is too much for 90 days is such a long period. I think the committee needs to look at, should they give 30 days or 45 days? Honorable Speaker, on matters to do with public participation, I think there was a proposed bill on public participation before Parliament. And I think it is important that public participation should just not be public participation, that I'll get my supporters to come and say something, and that is it. I think we also need as Parliament to fast track that bill of public participation so that we also have a procedure of actually the public participation itself. In Nakuru, for example, Honorable Speaker, they did put a gazette notice to notify people of the public participation. But, Honorable Speaker, I think the Speaker of Nakuru County erred by allowing all the 11 sub-counties to do a public participation. Honorable Speaker, a bill like this, if we subject it to 290 constituencies, then it will take forever for us to be able. So I think also we need that specification in a public participation so that we can be able to. Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Gikare, just hold on. The Honorable Sanko, what is out of order?
Honorable Speaker, I think Honorable Kikaria is out of order to discuss the conduct of the Speaker, the Honorable Speaker of Nakuru County. Amendment bill go through public participation as demanded by our constitution.
Honorable Sankoku, you're out of order.
Him is out of
Assume your
order.
seat.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me not deliver on my colleague, Honorable Sankok. Honorable Speaker, the other bit is about the passage of the bill. When it comes to Parliament here, whether we approve it or not, it will still go. Once it is approved, assuming it goes through the requirement of the 24 counties and others. So sometimes we need to ask ourselves, then for what purpose? And if it comes, are we supposed to make amendments to the promoters' questions that has been given? Honorable Speaker, we appreciate the timelines which have been given, either to the commission or the president, and how many days they are supposed to take, so that we can be able to. Honorable Speaker, I think generally, if we look at the mandate that has been given, and the question that we continue asking is about, is it a multiple question or is it a single question? And I think that is also important for it to be verified. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you. There is quite a lot that we wanted to talk about, but I want to say that the bill is good. If it is now amended in a few areas, then we can have a very good law. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Sotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also support this bill. But, Mr. Speaker, I'll point out a few things that I think they must be looked at. The first thing is the proposal on the redrafting of the referendum bill, which really, according to this bill, it's supposed to be done by Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I think that is wrong, because I think the promoters should have a much say in the process of redrafting the bill, because these are people who have gone around the country.
The Honorable Sotsi. The Honorable Sotsi, I think I understand your.
These are very important issues to look at, because in the original bill, that was not the case. The second point, Mr. Speaker, is on the authority to frame and publish the question. Again, Mr. Speaker, I think this should really be the responsibility of the promoters and not any other person, e.g. IBC or Parliament. Should strictly be the promoters. Even the determination of whether to have a single question or a multiple question should be really the responsibility of the promoters of that bill, because it is very unfair to collect signatures and then someone else comes with the questions which are not known to you. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, is on the procedure of considering the popular initiative bill at the county assembly. Mr. Speaker, we have seen challenges at the Baringo County Assembly, what happened, and the matter now is in court. So I think this matter, according to the bill, the jailer sponsored bill, it is silent on that. But the CIOC provides a procedure, and I'm happy the committee, the joint committee, has adopted the proposal by CIOC. Now helps us to solve the problem that we have, for example, in Baringo County Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is the petitions. Mr. Speaker, the issue of referendum is a very weighty issue, just like the issue of presidential election. So I think we need also to tie up the presidential election petition to referendum petition. Because in this case, if you say that the High Court or the Court of Appeal will be involved, and then you are giving a long time frame of 6 months to determine the matter, then you are giving an opportunity for people who are out to cause mischief to take advantage of this and delay the whole process. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this issue must be looked at very keenly so that we clean up at the Committee of the Whole House. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is application of the Election Act. If you look through the bill, Mr. Speaker, you see we have at least 30 consequential amendments to the Election Act. I think this is not very clean. Maybe we should have considered to merge both the Election Act and the Referendum Act. Because if you look at this bill in clause 3, it proposes situations and events where the Election Act can be applied. I think this is not very clean. We need just to state that Election Act will be applicable where necessary. But I think the best thing is to try and merge the two acts of parliament. Mr. Speaker, the issue of the power of IBC to make regulations. There are 31 situations where IBC makes regulation. Mr. Speaker, this is contrary to the recommendation of the Kriegler report, which recommended that we should not give too much discretion to IBC on some issues. I think this is a matter that we need to look at because it can also create unnecessary delays in processing this regulation. Mr. Speaker, lastly, is on the issue of verification of signatures. I think this process must be very clear. What is involved in verifying signatures? Does IEBC have a repository of signatures? The answer is no. So what have they been verifying? I think the best thing is that we want to be told as Kenyans, because we provided our information under Huduma Number project. Can this be integrated to the IEBC system so that in future we don't struggle looking for signatures to verify? The system will be able to give us the signatures and we will be certain that the signatures we are using are the correct signatures. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, with those submissions, I support this referendum bill.
The Honorable Kimani Kuria, member for Molo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance to contribute to the referendum bill number 2 of the National Assembly, bill number 14. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I was trying to find out what wisdom is and learned that it entails cognitive knowledge, understanding, insightful, reflective thought, and integration of one's views with those of others. Studies, Mr. Speaker, have shown that there is a direct relationship between wisdom and age. And that's why from the onset, because I don't have a chance to do this in the morning, I would like to commend and to condole the family of the late Honorable Haji, the late Honorable Oyoka, and the late Honorable Nyachai. These are talents, these are banks of information that we as the young people of this country will miss, and hopefully will get to understand, respect, learn, and tap from this knowledge gap so that when we become of that age in future, it's an information that we can share with the generations that are going to be behind us, Mr. Speaker. The Bill of Rights, Mr. Speaker, provides that there is a freedom to choose. And this coming referendum, Mr. Speaker, gives that and assures us of that freedom. There's going to be a chance to either oppose or propose the constitutional amendments being brought up by this popular initiative of BBI. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the bill before us is rightfully before Parliament, because now Parliament will provide for that platform where people can come out and say clearly whether they are for or against the popular initiative in terms of the constitutional amendment through this BBI. Mr. Speaker, I must commend the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for taking the initiative to reform and develop our referendum legal framework. And if this House passes this, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that will go to a long way to affirm the will of the people of Kenya. One Thomas Jefferson, Mr. Speaker, a diplomat, one of the founding fathers of the US, said that the will of the people is the only legitimate foundation of any government. And therefore that government must safeguard the expression of that will of the people. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this referendum bill is a clear expression that this parliament, that the Republic of Kenya is willing to respect and to have people express their will through the referendum. Mr. Speaker, the bill seeks to establish procedures for the conduct of the referendum, including providing for referendum committees and establishing a level playing field for the referendum. This bill will achieve the balance for providing an equal funding and limiting a reasonable manner for the public good, and this will consequently afford the Kenyan people an equal opportunity to make their decision based on the information that has been provided. Mr. Speaker, our elections have been said to be a reserve of those that have resources. It is said that if you want to run for any political office, you need to have particular kinds of money, you need to have a particular kinds of budget. And this provision, therefore, Mr. Speaker, by this, providing funding for this different views shows that it's going to provide an equal opportunity to whether those propagating for the passing of the referendum or against it, to have an equal chance to show their case to the Kenyan people and have the Kenyan people express their will. Mr. Speaker, any law must be simple, it must be transparent, and must take into account the special needs of persons with disabilities and other persons with special needs. And Mr. Speaker, the requirements of this canon law, of it being simple and transparent and taking care of the needs of people with disabilities has been taken care of by this referendum bill. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I'm standing to propose and to agree with the referendum bill. Mr. Speaker, the Elections Act passed in 2011 has been the legal framework to govern the conduct of elections as well as referenda. Under the Elections Act, the provisions that address on the conduct of referendum are primarily enshrined in Part 4 of the Elections Act from Section 49 to 55B of the Elections Act. The provisions, Mr. Speaker, of this Elections Act have been considered to be grossly inadequate to address all manners regarding the conduct of referenda. From my reading of the report, I understand that the committee has been in consultation with the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission on what the Commission thinks about our current law and how this referendum should be conducted. Mr. Speaker, the laws of the land of any country should be consistent, and the bill therefore removes this conflict and potential inconsistency with other laws. For example, a referendum can only be initiated through an act of parliament, and this can cause the creation of any law to initiate an amendment. The committee made this observation and recommends that if the bill passes, it should be the forum under which any referendum to amend the Constitution should be conducted. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution provides through Elections Act, Section 52A, read together with Section 51, that you could have a referendum that have multiple questions. But Mr. Speaker, either a person supports this referendum, however, Mr. Speaker, puts this in black and white. In that Kenyan who goes to vote for this referendum either agrees or disagrees with the proposed amendments in the referendum. So it removes all the gray areas and makes it a black and white initiative. It is either a yes or a no. And that makes it clear. Considering that the clamor, Mr. Speaker, of amending this Constitution through the BBI initiative and then in future, I hold the considered view that this initiative by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is laudable. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the remarks made by the Honorable Kioni about what he had worked on and what now we have been brought here. Earlier today, when I was doing my research on this bill, when I went to the table office, I was asked, which referendum bill are you referring to? Are you referring to the one for CIOC, or are you referring to the one by JLAC? And that really, Mr. Speaker, although has been remedied by the joint, remedied by the joint report that you have shared with us now, really paints Parliament in a different way. And we wish that in the future, that any member of this House that comes up with any amendment, with any bill, through the private members' bill, is accorded an equal chance to have that bill become law without having to go begging other people or to go to beg other authorities for that bill, Mr. Speaker, to be given priority. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I fully support this bill and urge this Honourable House to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well spoken, member for Molo, Honorable Kimani. We shall now have the Honorable Gogo Achieng, member for Rangwe.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to also speak on this matter. And I rise to support the bill. Of course, this is an interesting time to discuss this particular matter because as things stand, we are trying to lay down structures for posterity, and especially when we come up with a referendum bill, it means that any referendum that is going to be done here and after is going to be anchored in law, and essentially there are provisions for procedural matters. And on the matters of procedure, there has always been elements of litigation that come out of...
The honorable members behind the member contributing, kindly consult in lower tones. And also remember that COVID is still here with us. The honorable member for Muhoroni, the honorable member for...
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for protecting me, because there is a lot of high consultations behind me and they are distracting me. So I rise to support this bill, Honorable Speaker. And I was mentioning the matter of procedure, which has been well covered on the procedural issues that are to be followed before a referendum is carried out. And this bill speaks very well on this matter. And as I say, many times people run to court because of not following procedures well when conducting a referenda or when doing other matters that affect the people. I also rise to support this bill, Honorable Speaker, because it gives clear guidelines on the funding of referenda if it is to be carried out, so that it is not dependent on only one person. The funding, the method of funding is well laid out, and this is very important, so that we don't have somebody or a particular institution holding out or holding the country at ransom, especially when it comes to provisions for funding. I also rise to support this particular bill on the equality, the provisions that it gives on equality for proponents and opponents of pertinent matters that would call for referendum. This particular bill has put it out very well, and there is not going to be any contention on who is proposing and who is opposing. And as it were, everybody is given an equal chance to give their propositions, and also those who are opposing are also given an equal chance to oppose the matter that they don't like, and then a referendum is done. I also want to give my contribution on the work that has been brought on the floor of this House. As much as Honorable Kioni put forth his reservations, thank you, Honorable Member, for supporting this bill. But as it were, this bill has been worked on by two very serious committees of this House, and public participation has been done by both, and that shows the in-depth position of the matter that we are discussing on the floor of this House this evening, that a lot of work has been done on it. People who did not do public participation on the one that was brought by CIOC probably had another chance of doing public participation when it was presented by JLAC. So this is a bill that is specifically very, very well researched, very, very well participated by the public. And if we were to really take our time to look at matters, especially before they are brought in the floor of this House, and if they touch on two committees, it is a good thing when committees also work together, because they have also held joint sittings that have been done together, and they have agreed on what part to bring, what part to improve on. So the bill that we are discussing on the floor of this House, Honorable Speaker, has really well been looked at by the two committees. And it doesn't matter what committee presents it to the floor of the House, but what is important is the content of the bill, which, when I have looked at it, it is rich, and it is going to help this country moving forward, and especially for posterity. Another matter, Honorable Speaker, referenda being a direct and a universal vote needs that Parliament looks at matters that can bring down the effort that has been done by the people that we represent on the floor of the House. So if we come up with this bill and it is supported and it goes through, then this is going to stamp authority, especially on what the electorate wants. What the electorate wants through a referenda is going to be anchored in law. And anything that is anchored in law is protected. And even if it goes to court, the judicial system is going to have a point of reference. As it were, we have not been having a referendum law, and now that we are bringing it in, I think it's going to be good for posterity. So with the very many remarks that I have made, Honorable Speaker, I am supporting this particular bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Kibiwot Meli, member for Tinderet.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, thank you for allowing me to speak to this bill. First of all, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the mover, Honorable Member for Honorable Tendo Molo, for the good work he did. Honorable Speaker, this bill is going to set a precedent, as it is going to put together a number of laws together that relates to carrying out referendums in this country. It will be a bill that is going to set a level playing ground. And I want to ask honorable members that let us make this bill not for BBI alone, but for future referendums in this country. It shall not be a bill that is set to only look at this current BBI process in this country. It will also look at issues that can cut across not only on politics, but even on opinions that the citizens want to discuss. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the bill, and I want to thank the proponents, is that it is looking into issues that concerns us. But there are certain things that I think we need to put a lot of input into it. That one, when it comes to referenda questions, and I think that one has really been talked into, whereas the proposer or the proponents would wish to have a bill in a certain way. However, we also need to have the feel of the other members that are actually going to speak into this referendum. So that it is not going to be a bill that is going to only look at one side of our law. Honorable Speaker, when you look at this bill, it has talked about funding. And this funding is actually very, very pertinent. And when you look at a number of referendums across the world, it is going to affect the people very well if it is well funded, if it is well structured, even the committees that has been given. But I want that thing to be even taken lower to the polling station, where all, both proposers and the opponents of a particular referenda are given equal opportunities in terms of access to public resources and also time to be given to air their views. There is something which I really feel Honorable Speaker, especially on clause 13, for the cost of the referendum and committees. And this one talks about election campaign financing, the limitations. This is an area which I think we really need to look into. If it is not well taken care of, I think this section can easily be abused, and I propose, maybe at the third reading, we propose its deletion. Honorable Speaker, when you look at what the chair of CIOC talked about, especially on issues that I think JLAC and CIOC need to have sat down and actually have a bill that cuts across what the CIOC wanted and what has been put in by the JLAC committee. And I think this one, I want to speak mainly on the respect, what we need to respect all the other committees. When they have taken up a proposal, they either bring to the House, it is defeated, and if it does not go through, then it is good for that particular bill, all the bills to be given equal priorities before the floor. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, I've seen a section in this bill where it allows for a number of questions to be asked. And I think this is where we really need to develop that and agree as members that we cannot have a bill that is only going to have one-sided. We have a number of issues that we are speaking into, Honorable Speaker. We are not only speaking into yes or no. We'll speak into issues that are being discussed in that particular referendum. And I propose, and I think in the next stage, Honorable Speaker, we shall be speaking into new proposals on number of questions that are supposed to be there, so that we are not only going to look at this particular section, we'll be looking into many other issues that will come across. For that, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Very well. The Honorable Kigano, Chair JLAC.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People may wonder why, as chair, I have to contribute. I didn't move the bill. The bill was moved, very well moved by my vice chair. Mr. Speaker, I tabled this report, the joint report, earlier on in the day, this afternoon. Perhaps as many members as possible should acquaint themselves with the harmonized report. This harmonized report is a unanimous report by both committees. Let me call it Kioni Committee and JLAC. Both of them met through a subcommittee, and the whole committees, both committees, then approved the harmonized draft. And for the sake of clarity, very eminent members of the, you have the list? Members of the, very eminent members of the, both committees considered, you have the list? I have it somewhere. Give me a minute. I'll read out the names because this may array some of the fears that my colleagues may have on the propriety of the report that was tabled. But before I get it, I think I have it here. Thank you. The eminent persons consisted of my colleague, chairman of CIOC, Kioni, Mheshimiwa Dr. Otiende Omolo, my vice chair, Honorable Kaluma, Honorable Jennifer Shamala, Honorable Olago Aruoch, Honorable Anthony Aruoch, Honorable Zureika Hassan, Honorable Japhet Mutai, Honorable Tom Kajwang, Honorable Christine Obaka, and Honorable Yusuf Hassan. So these are eminent members of this House and members of the committee. Although one may say one committee may have been preferred over the other, but if you look at the 6th schedule of the Constitution, which constitutes Honorable Kioni's committee, and the 6th schedule of the standing orders, you will find that both committees overlap, the duties, the jurisdictions overlap, just like many other committees. Sometimes we overlap. But the most important thing is we are not arguing, we are not fighting, only that the Speaker made a ruling and said that my committee should pilot. And in the course of piloting, then we harmonize. We harmonize the reports, both the reports. And Mr. Speaker, the whole foundation of this bill is the bill is donated by Article 82 of the Constitution, which says there shall be such a bill. And this bill, we are obligated under that article that the bill, the voting to be provided under that bill shall be simple. Simple. So you cannot, that rules out multiple questions. Because when you have a simple, the Constitution obligates simple, simplicity. If you are going to have 10 questions, then the voting is not going to be simple. And that is mandatory under the Constitution. Equally, the Constitution itself, because this bill contemplates, it goes wider outside many other matters, omnibus matters, and brings into issue Article 257 of the Constitution, that the suggestion under that article must be converted to a bill, must be made into a bill. I don't know whether a bill, you say it is a multi or a simple question. A bill is lies in between. Mr. Speaker, the other question I would like to address is perhaps a lot of my colleagues, particularly I heard it from Dr. Oudo, spoke about public participation. Public participation is a subjective, the test is subjective. If you look, and you can only look at public participation at the moment if you mistakenly overlap this bill with any other election. Even if you did, and came to 257, public participation, as I say, if you look at PIC BBI, for example, if you look at BBI, it has gone through the mill. It went through the committee. It went through the committee, national committee, collecting views. They met members of the public, and views were expressed and compressed into a book. Then it came to verification, right? Countrywide verification, and views were corrected, the memoranda. So there has been a lot of, depending on how you look at public participation, you cannot only say that it is only the county that can conduct public participation. As far as I'm concerned, public participation has been fully addressed and effected. And I hope and expect all our members to advise their constituents to vote for this referendum when it comes. Thank you.
The Honorable Muturi Kigano is a constitutional lawyer. So when he contributes, then there is not much that we can say or take away from his contribution. The Honorable T.J. Kajwang.
Chief Justice, House Manager. That is a House Prosecutorial Manager.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I did not know I was going to be so soon. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to first start with what I think is procedural. I've listened to my chair, Honorable and Ranking Member Jeremiah Kioni, and I sympathize with his circumstance. I join him because I am in his committee. I join him in every word. But I can't explain it more and more eloquently than he has done already. But I think we need to deal with a bigger issue. We now need a referendum law. And even though we are now discussing the law emanating from JLAC, and that there is another bill sponsored by CIOC, at the end of the day, we want a referendum law. And so the content now is more important than the persons who are spearheading it. But we must find a way, Mr. Speaker, sir, to sanitize this apparent incongruence, and it can be done. I've looked at the Speaker's ruling, and Mr. Speaker, sir, you have just explained it some more this evening. It does not in any way negate the principles that I've had here. In fact, it helps us to cement, to put together the thoughts that have been expressed in JLAC, the thoughts that have been expressed in CIOC. I have a practical solution, in my view. I think that this bill should be processed the way we are processing it, and it should pass, as I can see it passing. And I think also that the COC, that the leader of majority should take the first opportunity, even tomorrow, also to list CIOC. And members will see that CIOC also carries very good positions on these matters, perhaps better than what JLAC has, and pass it too. Now we'll be having two bills which have passed second reading. At the point that we come to committee stage, the two committees should come with a united report guiding members on the committee amendments that are necessary. If therefore there is any other member which has different amendment, that is also allowed. In that way, we will be having two bills which have been considered separately, but there is a united front in which the amendments are brought. If that doesn't happen, of course, I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, sir, speaking for myself, I will carry as many amendments from CIOC as I am able to come by to enrich what I think the JLAC have done. But I think the best way so that we can harmonize this, because we have used taxpayers' money, we have been officially commissioned to look at these things. I don't see competition. There is no competition in these issues. There is no one bill that is superior than the other. It is just that we are in one house and we want to come with one document which speaks to everyone. And so I think the spirit that we need to look at is then how to harmonize the committee stage amendments that captures the spirit of all these things. Mr. Speaker, allow me to move to second thing, which is related to what I've just said. If you consider CIOC, many of these debates that I've had, which are splendid, would have not arisen because many of them have been looked at. The first one, I heard the leader of minority, Honorable Mbadi, talk about the fact that it is unconstitutional to expect that that IBC should be given powers which it does not have in the Constitution. If you look at the deliberation of the CIOC, that has been taken care of. That has been overcome. Members are debating from a raw bill. But had members looked at the report, you would have seen that there's a lot of advancements that have been made, which takes care of some of these things. Honorable Ochanda, for example, is uncomfortable that there is single constituencies. And that troubled us also in the committee, that we cannot have a single constituency. It means in a plain way that you are now creating a polling station a polling station in the constituency, which will only handle referendum, but which does not ordinarily handle elections. What you have said, and you can see it in the joint report, is that the applicable law in the Elections Act will apply in the referendum with the necessary modifications. What are those laws? One, that there is a polling station which has been established for purposes of elections. That polling station should be the same polling station that is used in referendum. You can't have a constituency and call it maybe a county and expect members to go and vote in one single constituency called a county. It can't work because there is already a legal precedence borne by stare decisis and borne by the law that a polling station will only have 700 people. And this is what we want to do. So, were you to pass the JLAC without seeing the richness of CIOC, then you'll create a conflict. You will have a single constituency, but then you will have this one which says that import all the laws of Elections Act into this, then there will be a conflict of laws. So it is important, gentlemen, this is no competition, and ladies. No, gentlemen and distinguished ladies, because you see the ladies are more distinguished than this gender. So you see, we must find a way that we can put these things together so that we are together. Now, the last thing, I want to talk about this thing called single question, multiple question, and all that thing that is dividing us. Sometimes if you do not know something, please ask. There are people who went to school and spent years to study just legal terms and how to use them on the law. Don't be a doctor of everything. You will make people abort. If you want to be a doctor and you're just a witch doctor. The law is very clear. The word referendum is used in the context of Article 255 and 257. If you look at 255, it says that referendum will be done within some manner. Then it goes as a bill to amend the referendum. A bill, not bills. Where is this language of bills and all these multiple questions? It is a bill. Now, it is that bill that is presented. It is the one which is doing its journeys in the constituencies. All right? But there is something confusing, members. I heard veterans talk about issues which concern society, like should we have gay marriages? Like should we have the dogs walk on the streets at some particular hour of the day or of the night? And all those issues. Nobody says that those are not questions. They are very important issues of the day. But those are not issues of the referendum within 255. This act is implementing 255 only. You will have an opportunity of creating a bill or creating an act of parliament which deals with many of these issues that you're talking about. And so, when I hear members saying, members, let us do a law which covers everything. There could be other questions, whether we should secede and so on. There will be an opportunity. And when that opportunity will arise, the first thing we will do in the Interpretations Act, in the interpretation section, will be to define that questions bordering on good governance are also issues of referenda. But right now, we are dealing with only one thing, which is amendment to the Constitution. So this multiple thing that we are talking about, does put siasa where it is not necessary. You know, and ask the lawyers, and they are here, and they will give you advice for free. You are talking things which are not legal. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, sir, let us pass this bill. It is a good bill. But bring the other CIOC bill, let us also pass it, and then we will have, please, Honorable Majority Leader, please, I beg you, please, before you raise the point of order, and please don't cut me, I want to beg the Leader of Majority, please. It is responsible. We are going to pass this. but also bring the CLC one. It is also good. Let us also pass it. Then we have a joint committee which will lead us into the
The Honorable Kajwang, your time is up.
Mr. Speaker, you can complete it for him.
But I was really intrigued by that part about the doctors, the many doctors that you and I, we have studied. We studied interpretations as a whole unit at the university. And now he was talking about stereo decisis and which doctors. The Honorable Kajwang always tickles my. The Honorable Wangwe, are you ready?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, I rise to support this bill and congratulate and thank the chair for JLAC, as well as the chair for CIOC, who, if it was not for other issues, could be my deputy president, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to begin by saying that this bill recognizes everything and all persons are inclusive, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, that is what really enables me to feel that this bill is good to support. Many of the people outside there shall be asking, Honorable Speaker, what is it that is there for me in this bill? And just from the onset, Honorable Speaker, I am interested in Article 100 of this bill. This bill under Article 100, Honorable Speaker, stops us or any other person from being forced to disclose to what did he vote for. Honorable Speaker, most of the time this bill will be subjected to maybe the political class asking for the people to vote against it, for it, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, once you are asked to vote, and in the event that maybe it results into a court process, one could be asked to state what did he vote for. Honorable Speaker, the advantage of this is that the act now, should it pass, it will stop anyone from being asked to disclose, and that in itself, Honorable Speaker, is a good thing from where I sit. Honorable Speaker, I'm also attracted with Article 104 in this bill, which states that, Honorable Speaker, is really elaborating on how various persons with special needs are included in the process, Honorable Speaker. I'm really concerned with the way the persons with a disability have been put on board in the way that, Honorable Speaker, such that should there be persons with a disability or the voting places shall be in a certain manner that shall support people who live with a disability. And Honorable Speaker, in our society we know, and in this House, we have a representative of 6.5 million people, 001, and if we take care of those people, Honorable Speaker, it means that the society will have everyone to vote, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm also concerned and happy that the report which was given to us this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, really addresses the issues of concern. For example, Honorable Speaker, this bill aligns us, the Constitution, it aligns, Honorable Speaker, between the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and I want to be particular, Honorable Speaker, Article 256, Honorable Speaker, which talks about the parliamentary process in terms of the parliamentary initiative. Honorable Speaker, when you read the entire Article 256, it does not give the President how many days it takes to instruct the IBC, Honorable Speaker, to cause the referendum election. But now through this amendment, Honorable Speaker, we see that the joint committee has now agreed on how the 14 days that is going to instruct the President by law that within which he should now cause the election through the IBC. Honorable Speaker, I'm also touched on the issue of the hearing of the petition by the bench of the three judges, Honorable Speaker. In the bill, it is putting to us that under clause 21, the bill shall provide for hearing of a petition to be by the three judge benches to be heard and determined within 6 months. Honorable Speaker, by the bill giving us the timeline is a good thing, so that, Honorable Speaker, we don't have a petition which will last forever. We are aware, Honorable Speaker, there are some petitions which have taken years on end. They have never been determined. In this House, Honorable Speaker, we have the petition by the Honorable Waluke, which has never been determined, years on. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it's important that we give a time frame to the judicial system so that they tell us within 6 months they are able to settle this matter and let the judiciary itself set the bench of the 3 judges. Honorable Speaker, I'm attracted to that, and I feel it's a good thing if we push this referendum bill to be in that manner. Honorable Speaker, on the same note of the judicial corridors, Honorable Speaker, there is also the right of the appeal of the High Court decision on a referendum. Honorable Speaker, it is important that there should be a process of appeal. Maybe for one reason or another, the High Court might not have really determined in the best interest of what one thinks, and it moves to the Court of Appeal. In as much as, Honorable Speaker, this report gives us that there is the issue, it appears it has to enter the Court of Appeal, which I do agree, rather than proceeding on considering the 6 months that we have it in mind. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I feel comfortable that the Court of Appeal to be at the tail end of determining the justice that arises from this bill, Honorable Speaker, is a good thing, and I would want to really support it. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion to my support of this bill, it is also good that as we go into the courts, we are made certain that various finalities can come out, various results can come out, such as the costs that could be incurred. I'm happy that in Article 103, the costs have been really mentioned and itemized, which is a good thing in a bill, rather than, Honorable Speaker, leaving it open to the judicial system or the judicial officer to determine. Honorable Speaker, I'm also happy that the powers of court under Article 102 of the bill have also been settled. And therefore, when you are going to court, you know the jurisdiction of the court and the level of outcome that you expect from that court. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support and ask my colleagues that they support this bill. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Fabian Muli, member for Kangundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to deliberate on this bill. But, Honorable Speaker, as we pass this bill, there are some factors which you need to understand, especially how is the admissibility of the bills when they come in this House. That process, how it follows, because I stand in the same school of thought of our HEBO Chair, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, on how understanding how the bills are admissible in this House. The other question, Mr. Speaker, I've seen HEBO Chair of JLAC bringing a report. The question is, as in a legislative process, when the bill in the second reading, doing the report, those are the questions we need to ask ourselves, because when the matters of this House by making law, the process is very important, must be observed. Honorable Speaker, this referenda process bill, it has a lot of excitement in public because the whole country is speaking about BBI. But I want to bring it in attention that also the public to understand, this is a bill of referendum process. It's a bill which was the process which to be undertaken for Article 257 or 256 in the matters of referendum. It is not the referendum bill we are debating in the House. Honorable Speaker, I take this bill from JLAC, but there are things which we need to check when we go with the third reading, because it's not giving the ownership of the promoters of the bill. They are not mentioning anywhere, because the promoter of the bill might wake up and oppose the bill. If the promoter of the bill, people are drafting BBI today, wake up and say that document, we don't need it, it's not there. So this referendum process bill should show the principle of the promoters of a referendum bill. The other thing this bill is trying to establish as if there will be multiple questions. That one I'm allowing the fact bring by Honorable Kajwang, because this is just one bill for Article 257. But this referendum bill is showing that there are multiple bills. Because if we have multiple bills, we can have many multiple questions. But the bill which is here is to amend Article 257. So we should not talk about many bills. So this need to be considered at that reading. The other thing, this bill in Section 25, it is trying to bring the issues of registering committees in constituencies. This is like referendum is a matter of political. But now when you bring the registering of committees in constituency levels, they'll bring matters which become consistent in the public, that people will tend to say that there is a committee, another committee, which look to be registered in the constituency. So we need to describe very well what are these committees, who is supposed to register them, and what are the duties of these committees. The other issue of this bill, which I've seen it might bring inconsistency in application, is because they are speaking about petitions. The petitioner himself, because matters of referendum, the petition is very important. It has to describe very well, given point to point, how it's supposed to be followed. This bill, it has not given the security cost of a petitioner. Because today, if I'm the one presenting the petition, somebody can say to bring a very big petition cost so that I withdraw that petition. The other thing, this bill, it has given a room to petition, but it has not shown us if a petitioner withdraw the case, what normally happen. Does that case going to lapse, or does it give a room to another petitioner to proceed with the case? Because the bill has given the time to petition to lapse. So what if I petition this referendum to block other person not to petition? So we need, when we go to that reading, to check the factors of petition. Also in the issues of petition, the petitioner has been given, the case has gone up to 6 months. 6 months, if you see the referendum, the country will be in the tension. The country want to know the results, they want to finish the process and go on. By giving a petition to go for 6 months, the time is very long. It is good, matters of law, they need exactly time, and time in matters of law need to be described and short, so that we get the conclusion, to avoid a lot of conflict in the country. So, Honorable Speaker, as we agreed as committees of CIOC, we agreed we support this bill, but still the question lies that there are some many facts, there are some many documents which we carried as a committee which deal with the matters of constitution. So we need to come up with a way. The House, we need to put a prayer to you on this CIC bill which talk about the same matters, whether we can through the harmonized document or whatever the way it comes, because that document carries a lot of material which are very important matters of referendum in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill, but I leave the question that we need a proper document. We need a proper laws to carry our referendum for the sake of our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Mutunga, member for Tigania West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this debate on the bill, on the Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2020. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important bill to this country and for our people. Honorable Speaker, we have had several referendums, as members have said, and we did those referendums without a law that would guide us to do it. But we somehow survived anyway. However, Honorable Speaker, at this point in time, I think the bill has come at the right time, so that we may be able to set modalities, we may also be able to set the processes themselves, and also the functions that have got to be followed for purposes of coming up with a good referendum that is to satisfy every person in this country that they have been properly taken care of. Honorable Speaker, I think it would be good for us as members of Parliament and as a country to link this particular process and this particular bill with the BBI. It would be very good for us to look for a law that is going to be there for a very long time and that will take care of the issues that will come in the future and give flexibility for purposes of dealing with these issues in the best way possible. Honorable Speaker,
This particular law is important in the sense that we need to really be very sober as members of parliament. We need to agree to each other. We need to talk to each other. We need to understand each other so that you can come up with a harmonized law that is taking care of the interests of all Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, the JLA Committee and COIC have had a meeting, and they have come up with a joint report, which is in draft form, that we have not been able to look at. But looking at the report that was presented by JLAC, Honorable Speaker, there are quite a number of issues that are being referred to regulations. And when issues are being referred to regulations in large numbers and large amounts, and some of them looking very fairly complicated in the bill, it appears like we may have to guide the process of doing the regulations themselves, so that the requisite interpretations will give us the message that we wanted to have at the end of the day. It would be good for us, Honorable Speaker, to be able to harmonize the two bills and come up with a joint version that in the third reading we can also take time. And I would like to beg the members of this House to take time and to listen to each other during the third reading and the committee of the whole House, so that we are able to come up with a law that is going to help us, not just today, not just for the referendum that is upcoming, but also for the future of this particular nation and for the future of the laws of this country. Honorable Speaker, there are some considerations that have been put in terms of changes in the electoral law. The electoral law has been considerably amended. We have counted 27 sections of the electoral law have been repealed, which means they have been completely changed. And 4 sections have been amended. I am wondering whether we are going to have an electoral law, electoral act, or shall we have a referendum and elections, electoral act? At the end of the day, we need to also look at what have we been left with, and how does this law serve us as Kenyans, and how is it going to help us to move forward in as far as we are concerned? Because this particular referendum bill basically speaks to the changes in the law, the electoral law, and therefore we will need to look at that other one. Honorable Speaker, this bill seems to have to give a lot of discretion to IEBC. I would not like us to look at IEBC the way it is right now, because if you look at IEBC as it is right now, there's a lot that we have bestowed upon IEBC. The issue of course, verification of signatures, for instance, and I don't know the extent to which we've been able to build the capacity of IEBC to actually verify signatures. And I do not know what method they use to know whose signature is which, and which is the authentic or the valid signature that is supposed to be, approved. I wish we could be able to go biometric so that we are able to know exactly who has signed what. But IEBC, we are giving a lot of room to IEBC. We are also passing a lot of responsibility to IEBC in terms of doing regulations. And when IEBC is given so much work, what are we talking about? How much timeline are we giving them? And how are we guiding the IEBC to give us what is really important? Honorable Speaker, there is a clause, 1 or 2 I would like to refer to, like clause 2, which basically talks about the referendum question. I would like us to look at this in terms of possibilities of having more than one question. Let's not lock our mind into the BBI, but we should look at do a law for posterity, do a law for the future, do a law for circumstances that probably may demand us to have more than one question. We have seen many countries come up with referenda that have been able to tackle many questions. In our own election, we did an election where we elected many people. We elected the MCAs, we elected the members of parliament, and there were not one, there were many. And it was possible for Kenyans to choose from the list that were provided. So it is possible for Kenyans still to interpret whatever comes up and be able to choose. So we should not limit ourselves because of probably the perceptions that we are having. So multiple choice is something that is possible. We should have an inbuilt flexibility. Honorable Speaker, there's a clause 3, part 2, which basically gives provisions for necessary modification, and it gives it in a very open manner. It's quite open. It should be taken into account the specificity of this particular modification, and also develop the requisite clarity so that we do not open it a lot, so that we should be able to incorporate into the Act the regulations, as proposed by the committee. Honorable Speaker, I would like to cite clause number 5A that is talking about at least none of the clause number 5. Let me make specific references. Clause number 5, that I may make my point very clear. Clause number 5 talks about having.
The Honorable Lesonet, you are a senior member of this House. You know the rules. The Honorable Lesonet, you are completely out of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Just do what is the right thing to do. You've been here. You know what to do.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for the intervention. I would like to refer the members to clause number 5A, which says that not more than 1/3 shall be from one county in terms of the county passage of this bill, and it goes further to say that the voters in at least 24 counties shall be represented. When you talk of not more than 1/3, I looked at 1 million divided by that and got around 333,000. Honorable Speaker, if we give 333 to one county, and we are talking about passing in 24 counties, there is a possibility that we can have some counties giving us 10, 15, 20. Shall we have requisite representation? Or shall we be talking about equity in terms of representation? I think this particular clause needs to be looked into. And my proposal is that we need to look at least, we need to be able to say that at least that not more than 10% shall be from one particular county, not just a third. A third is at 3%, it's a lot. And we are talking about 25 counties. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I do support this particular legislation, and I pray that we are able to agree and come up with a good law for the posterity of this country. Thank you.
The Honorable Sossion.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the bill, and Honorable Speaker, I wish to say that this is going to be one of the most important bills in implementing the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. I am saying so because if you look at Article 10, National Values and Principles of Governance, Article 10.2, 2A, it talks about the national values and principles of governance shall include patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, and democracy and participation of the people of Kenya. And I'm particular about democracy and participation of the people of Kenya. We've talked about many issues ranging from constitutional amendments to key issues that are very dear to the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, when this bill should have come during the 10th Parliament or the 11th Parliament, so that people of Kenya could exercise their sovereign power on the very many issues that are confounding them. Honorable Speaker, as we look at and appreciate our democracy as a country, we know we've conducted 2 successful referenda in this country since independence, the 2005 and 2010. And circumstances are pushing us to another referendum. And therefore, this tells us that before the enactment of other legislations to implement the Constitution of Kenya 2010, this probably would have been the most essential bill that should have come among other bills in the 10th and the 11th Parliament. Nevertheless, it's good we are debating at the moment, and I want to thank both the CHAILAC and CIOC. And I would like to plead with our legal friends in those committees, with a lot of respect. You've done a fantastic job, but give us an easy time and get us a bill in this country, or an act that will enable the people of Kenya to exercise their sovereignty. This has been denied over time. Of course, the referenda, as seen in other civilizations, we are talking about Britain in terms of Brexit. Britain has not only conducted a referendum on Brexit. Referendums is a normal day activity, and it comes as when it is necessary. I remember, I think 2 years ago, or 3, Scotland, there was a referendum so that they can secede from the United Kingdom. And that was practiced, and the referendum was lost. So really, the referendum is not only for political purposes, for the specific constitutional amendment purposes, but it's also about issues that the people must decide. And I'm looking at quite a number of issues here. For example, in this country, we are deciding on the type of education system for this country. In the spirit of the Constitution, Article 10(2)(a), where is public participation?
Honorable Sushan?
Yep.
Thank you for your contribution. That time has caught up with us. I'll allow you to go to put your thoughts together again so that when this matter comes up, you will have 6 minutes to go. You will have priority at that time. Honorable members, thank you for keeping me company tonight and for your contributions. Honorable members, the time being 9 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Thursday, 18th February 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. This is Morning Express. It's always a pleasure to have you with us as we get to kickstart your day in style. I'm Jesse Rogers. Welcome to the broadcast.
Ngado, welcome as well. Of course, today, as usual, we'll take a look at the politics, but today we're focusing on the economy, the Building Bridges initiative, and at the same time, some of the political realignment